Konnichiwa. My name is Kevin Clements. I'm the director of the Toda Peace Institute, and it gives me very great pleasure to welcome you all here to this workshop on building peace in an unpredictable world, the global implications of Trump 2. I can't think of a moment in my lifetime when I felt more insecure and more worried and anxious about international relations and the state of the world than I am today. So I think that this workshop that we're putting on, which will feature senior research fellows from the Institute and myself, is very timely indeed. And I look forward to an interactive session with all of you in the Q&A periods. I would like to welcome members of the diplomatic corps, members of academia, the Women's Committee and Great Force, and other members of civil society and so forth. I'm very pleased that you're all here. So I was given the task of writing on the state of the world, and I have to say it's extremely challenging. I can explain it all a little bit in terms of just a series of words. I mean, it's turbulent, it's chaotic, it's unpredictable, it's anarchic, autocratic, unpeaceful, inhumane, unjust and unequal, environmentally challenged, inadequate political leadership, declining optimism, coercive, unsustainable, unbridled power, nationalism, populism, polarization, declining multilateralism, violent state-based armed conflict, geo-economic confrontation, and growing pessimism, and I could go on. These are just a few of the words that I think sum up the state of play at the moment. We're not living in an ordered, rules-based order anymore. We're living in an age of considerable uncertainty. I thought as I was preparing this that I would start off with the risk assessment that the elites were using at Davos just a couple of weeks ago. Each year they prepare a little, quite a large publication on the current global risk landscape. And I thought I would just start with that to show you the top 5 or 6 issues which are worrying the world's global leaders and academia and the experts who compiled this report. The first and obvious one is state-based armed conflict. All of the people that were compiling this report can't recall a moment when there's been so much state-based armed conflict, with the devastating consequences that we know will follow from that. Extreme weather events comes in at number 2, which should encourage political leaders and others to really, really take climate change much more seriously. And the fact that on the very first day of President Trump's presidency, he withdrew the United States from the Paris Accords doesn't augur well in terms of dealing with global climate change and environmental catastrophe. Geo-economic confrontation was the third, and that is something else, I think, which has become much sharper. And you can see the way in which it's been used over the past few days, as Trump, first of all, put tariffs on Mexico and on Canada and on China, then withdrew them from Mexico when they obeyed his requests, and postponed them on Canada, but kept them on China. So you can see that this geo-economic confrontation and the weaponization of trade is something which I think is going to become very challenging for all of us. And you'll see as number 4 there, misinformation and disinformation. This is becoming a kind of a major issue in relation to not only fake news, but the use of artificial intelligence and other things to influence political parties, political elections, decision-making generally. And so that's something else which comes in. And then number 5, I think, is societal polarization. I can't recall a moment in my life when there's been so much division in so many different societies. Australia and New Zealand, where I come from, for example, is deeply polarized. The United States is deeply polarized. Germany and France are deeply polarized. You're very fortunate here in Japan that I would have to say that you're one of the more integrated and less polarized countries of the world. And then economic downturn is the next, and then critical change to Earth systems. But those I think are very accurate risk assessments. They're something that we do need to take seriously. We've got to put them on the agenda all the time for thinking through what kind of political project we want to support. The World Economic Forum put this into a global risk landscape, which in a sense is a kind of a schematic outline of the way in which all of these different issue areas are connected. So we talked last year about the polycrisis. This is the polycrisis mapped out for you in schematic form. And the large dots are the dots which show how extreme the situation is. So we basically extreme inequality, decline in health and well-being, involuntary migration and displacement, economic downturn, misinformation and disinformation, interstate violence, biodiversity loss, and so forth. So this is what is particularly challenging to decision makers these days, because when they address one problem and say, well, growth is the answer, they suddenly discover that health infrastructure is disintegrating before their very eyes. So we have to begin thinking of ways in which we can address these problems sequentially and in the order of priority. I'm on the board of the Global Peace Index. That's funny. Sorry, I should go back to one. The Global Peace Index. And last year we found that the world is less peaceful than it was in 2008. There's a growing gap between the most and least peaceful countries. The number of conflicts in the world increased to 56 in 2024. From the small number of the 1980s and 90s, we're now at 56 major armed conflicts around the world. The number of countries involved in conflicts increased their borders to 92, and outside their borders increased to 92 in 2024, the highest since the Global Peace Index's inception. And military spending increased at its fastest rate since the GPI's inception. Total military expenditure last year, global military expenditure, reached $2,443 billion in 2023, an increase of 6.8% in real terms from 2022. And this was the steepest year-on-year increase since 2009. And the 10 largest spenders in the world, led by the US, China, and Russia, all increased their military spending, according to new data from Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. The economic impact is enormous. The global economic impact of violence in 2023 was $19.1 trillion. That's $19.1 trillion worth of lost expenditure, lost opportunity costs, and revenues which could have gone very well into helping us resolve our health crises, our education crises, and the environmental crisis. And in terms of levels of peacefulness, we haven't seen this on the index for many years. 97 countries deteriorated in peacefulness in 2024, more than any other year. And this year, as you know, the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists moved the doomsday clock from 90 seconds to midnight to 89. So nuclear risk has gone higher than it has ever been before. It's good to be reminded from the Russell Einstein Manifesto that we should remember our humanity and forget the rest. This was originally a call for peace and the non-use of nuclear weapons, and it's a reminder that people should prioritize their common humanity even over their loyalties to family, community, or nation. And that injunction gave rise to global humanitarianism. It's odd to think, oh, I've got 3 minutes left. Okay. Anyway, the whole point of that is the humanitarian project is under threat and under assault everywhere, with thousands of medical and aid workers being killed over the past 5 years. And we've forgotten our humanity in Ukraine, in the Sudan, and the Middle East, and in the other 53 ongoing wars. I just have to skip through these slides then. The three major conflicts, which are all proving to be quite intractable, are Israel-Palestine. That's resulted in 46,000 Palestinian deaths, 1,200 Israeli deaths, and a dire humanitarian crisis. 13,319 children killed. Ukraine is showing no sign of abatement and ceasefire negotiations in a nasty stalemate. And Sudan's civil war between the Sudanese armed forces and the rapid support forces has created another humanitarian catastrophe with thousands killed and over 1 million displaced. So there's little prospects of these easy resolution. The United Nations and regional organizations are being marginalized and gutted by Russia and the United States under Trump. The prospects for peace in those countries are bleak, while ceasefires and diplomatic efforts offer glimmers of hope. Lasting resolutions remain elusive, and the international community's role in addressing these crises will be critical, but current dynamics suggest that reactive conflict management rather than resolution and transformation will define the year ahead. I just want to put this up here, just go to the third paragraph to demonstrate that world's inequality is worsening. According to the World Bank, the number of people living in poverty has barely changed since 1990. The number of people living under the World Bank poverty line of $6.85 per day is close to 3.6 billion people, or 44% of the world's population. We can't sustain this extreme inequality. It's worse than France was before the French Revolution. 3.6 billion people lack dignity and power and grasp at populist strolls to try and change their condition. I think I'd better skip these. The US-China rivalry and economic decoupling, you've got it in your handouts there. The Global South is increasingly asserting itself in international affairs through the Belt and Road Initiative, the expansion of BRICS and so forth. But what we're seeing is that technological superiority, particularly in AI, is becoming a key battleground for geopolitical dominance. And when China launched its DeepSeek program, I mean, you could see what an impact that was on American high tech. So this is a battleground. It's not just a sector which is rapidly developing and showing us faster and more efficient ways of doing things. It is at the heart of the struggle between those who are in economic competition with each other. Climate change remains a critical issue. With 2025, expect to see more frequent and severe weather events. We're moving to a multipolar order with power dispersed among multiple nations and blocs, and that's leading to a global governance vacuum. The 80th anniversary of the UN this year highlights the need for reforms so that the UN might become more effective in the fields of security, climate change, and peaceful resolution of disputes. The rise of far-right politics in Europe and elsewhere, along with political polarization in the US, are undermining democratic institutions, and nowhere is this more clearly seen than in the United States right now. Commentators like Timothy Snyder, who are not given to hyperbole, are talking about a constitutional coup taking place even as we speak. This is in the United States, which used to be the bastion of democracy, the light on the hill. It's now finding that its own sovereignty and respect for the Constitution is under severe attack. The ending of USAID is generating challenges everywhere. All payments have been stopped to USAID programs. That means in Kenya, for example, as my colleague Lisa Shirk highlighted yesterday, that 7,000 USAID employees, local employees, have now just suddenly lost their jobs. So national actions are having grave international consequences. So we've got heightened competition, fragmentation, uncertainty, interplay of tech advances, global economy expected to grow at 2.7%, which is not enough to satisfy all the needs of all our countries. Global temperatures are expected to rise, leading to more frequent and severe weather events. Water scarcity and competition for critical minerals like lithium and cobalt will intensify. And addressing these challenges are going to require creativity, innovative diplomacy, inclusive governance, and a renewed commitment to multilateralism. Most important, though, are the millions of individuals, groups and organizations and communities represented by all of you here, working out how we can remain optimistic in the face of these challenges and how to assert the power of civil society to ensure high levels of political accountability and empathetic and compassionate politics. 1 minute left, so that gives me a chance to read the poem by Seamus Heaney, which is optimistic. Human beings suffer, he said, they torture one another, they get hurt and get hard. No poem or play or song can fully right a wrong inflicted and endure. History says, don't hope on this side of the grave, but then once in a lifetime, the longed-for tidal wave of justice can rise up and hope and history rhyme. So hope for a great sea change on the far side of revenge. Believe that a further shore is reachable from here. Believe in miracles and cures and healing wells, and believe in your own power and capacity as we resist the things we know to be truly evil. Thanks very much.